Good morning, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're going to give our audience members a couple minutes to join. We'll get started in a minute. Good morning, Baron. All right, everyone. I know there's a few more people going to trickle in as we go, but we'll go ahead and get started. Just in the interest of keeping on time today, getting through this, getting as much time with our distinguished panelists. I'm sure it's going to be a great conversation today. So welcome, everyone. Good morning. Hope you're having a great week. This is the Borderplex Alliance Technology Forum, and today we're going to be focusing on the fintech sector. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie Littlefield, the Vice President of Strategy at the Borderplex Alliance. I do run the Technology Council and all the technology forums, and I oversee our development of our strategic plan and the implementation of that strategic plan along with Christian Diaz. Today we have three incredible panelists with us to discuss a really exciting industry that the Borderplex Alliance and others have deemed really an opportunity for our region to grow our economy through. So what is fintech? I know that our panelists are going to talk a lot more about what is fintech and how is it deployed and how does it work and all of these things. But just as a way of framing the conversation for a very diverse audience, a really diverse audience with us today, the Borderplex Alliance and the regional economic development strategy around this is really based on certain things. Macro industry trends show customers increasingly expect to access financial services through digital technology. Fintech startup companies are prevalent, and new entrepreneurs are likely to continue to join the sector in hopes of solving complex issues with programs and technologies that will help meet growing customer demand and result in cost savings for companies. Companies will need to find new ways to integrate these technologies into their daily business operations to keep up with customer expectations and to take advantage of the efficiencies gained through technology applications. So today really is, I think, relevant to a lot of different sectors. And it's an exciting area for aspiring entrepreneurs who would like to get into the space. So without further ado, for those of you who maybe are unfamiliar with the format of our technology forums, we typically pass it over to each of our panelists to do a self-introduction to tell us all about themselves and what they're working on. So really ground our conversation, what we're talking about. And then we follow that with a moderated Q&A section. And then near the end, we'll give you all an opportunity to submit some questions for our panelists. So without further ado, I'd like to first introduce Ross Lugos. Ross Lugos is the Chief Business Officer for Curecubby. Kirkhubby is a local fintech company that the Borderplex Alliance assisted in expanding to the area. And we're really excited to have Ross with us. Ross, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to pass it over to you to do your self-introduction.
That's perfect. Natalie, thank you for the introduction. Definitely want to thank you and thank the Borderplex Alliance for allowing me to speak today. I'm especially appreciative of the folks who decided to join us today for this conference or this forum. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Let's see. There we go. Here we go. All right. And perfect.
You can see it, yes.
That's awesome. That's great, thank you. All right, let's just jump straight into it. The first thing I want to do is obviously, as Natalie said, do a self-introduction. I'm Ross Lugos. I'm the Chief Business Officer and co-founder of Curecubby. Prior to Curecubby, I have had some additional experience in fintech, most notably Moody's Analytics, which was formerly a small company called KMV. What they did was, or what we did when I was with them, was we provided corporate credit risk analytics to anybody who traded corporate credit or loans. It was basically anybody who traded debt. We helped facilitate their trading with our financial technology. Prior to that, also prior to Curecubby, I worked for a company called Good Data in the big data space. I think the best thing to do here is level set first and define what fintech is. And I'm sure my panelists have also their own opinions as well, but I'd like to share with you guys mine. If you log in and go to Google and check out what the dictionary says, Oxford Dictionary says, financial technology, fintech, it's a series of computer programs and other technology used to support or enable banking and financial services. Yes, it is that, but it's more. It's actually more than that. I think it's about people who want to make other people's lives better, make their financial lives better. That's really how I want to define fintech. It's not just the programs, it's the people who innovate. To give you a better sense of what fintech is, I think it'd be a good idea for us to think about the different areas of fintech and give you examples of companies that are operating in the fintech space. So in the fintech space, you can think of mobile banking, right? I don't know what the age range is of this panel, but I'm going to give away my age a little bit by sharing some of this information. You know, back in the day, banking was not mobile. Banking was something that you had to do on premise. You had to physically go to the bank. You had to give them, if I can show you guys really quickly here, you had to give them a, where is it? I had a really good prop here. Oh, one of these guys. Does anybody remember what this is? This is the little passbook that you'd have to bring to whenever you had to make a deposit or withdrawal. That's the way banking was done. And then things got much better once we started with the ATMs. But it's evolved so much now that where you can do your banking on your phone. And so that's when I talk about fintech, that's one of the spaces that's really growing is mobile banking. And even older players like Bank of America, they've moved online. And in fact, you have to, because if you don't, you're just not gonna be able to compete. Another area of fintech where there's fintech innovation is consumer lending. Back in the day, you used to have mortgage brokers. Now you can do it all online with companies like Rocket Mortgage. Stock trading, another area where fintech is innovating. You know, before you used to have to call a broker to actually execute a stock trade. Now you can do 1,000 trades a day through E-Trade. And through this company here, this logo, this green logo, Robinhood. Everybody's heard about them in the news, right? So we've gone from this very manual process of having to call people and executing maybe one trade per day to executing 1,000 automated, computerized algorithmic trades. And of course, something that's really a good buzzword right now is cryptocurrency. And the players in this space are players like Coinbase and PayPal. You can buy Bitcoin on PayPal. And of course, this is my favorite, this space, which is mobile payments. And here, again, you see players like mobile payment, like PayPal, like Venmo, like Apple Pay. And of course, my favorite, and that's why I'm here, Curecubby. So as you can see here, the fintech industry is an important industry because it really does have the potential to make your life and my life better. It gives us the opportunity to be more efficient, to do things faster, to do things more cheaply. And fintech providers their specialty is that they can address the changing needs of the customer, right? And they can provide solutions because they're streamlining maybe existing processes or creating new ones. They can do it at a much lower cost than those provided by traditional financial providers. And a good way to look at this is by taking a couple of use cases. Okay, we'll go into a couple of use cases. So let's take the traditional consumer lenders, right? And then we'll juxtapose that against the new fintech consumer lenders. As I said before, fintech has the ability to make our lives better by innovating. The traditional consumer lenders, they're expensive, they're paper-based, they're on-premise, they take days or weeks, lots of going back and forth. An example of this is when I remember back in 2000 when I first bought my house, right? I would go physically into a Washington Mutual bank, and it was and I would be hit with all these fees. They would say, hey, you know, we bring if I would go to a mortgage broker or Washington Mutual, I would see tons of fees, and they would always say, hey, but I'm bringing a lot of value to you. I'm giving you this concierge service. It was all paper-based. When I was in there, I was filling out tons of forms. I would have to physically make an appointment. And this is difficult, right? Because we're all busy, you know, we have kids, we have jobs, we have things to take care of, and it's not always easy to go in and make an appointment and actually fill out all these forms. And I remember when I filled out all these forms, I still wasn't even pre-approved for the loan. I would have to later find out several days later if I was pre-approved, because then they would have to send all that paperwork someplace else. Now, fast forward, many years forward, and you've got players like Rocket Mortgage and Better.com. These are what I believe to be fintech solution providers. And these folks, you know, they make things more affordable. Everything's digital, it's online. When I did my Better.com refinance, I saw it was very transparent what my fees were going to be, and they were able to make the fees lower because they streamlined the process. They cut a lot of their, if you will, fat off so that they could afford to compete with traditional consumer lenders at a much lower rate and therefore take market share away from them. They made things digital and online. All that paperwork that I used to have to go into a physical place to fill out, I did it from the comfort of my laptop. And I did it on my time. So now I get the freedom to not have to be tied to somebody else's time, but instead be able to do it on my time. Maybe I'd sneak 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, you know, fill out a form. And the results were instantaneous, right? So old technology, expensive, paper-based, on-premise, takes days or weeks. New technology, fintech technology, it's affordable, it's digital, it's online, it's instantaneous, right? Another example, we'll go into Curecubby, okay? It's pretty predictable, right? Again, let's do a comparison of the old case versus the new case, versus the traditional payments versus mobile payments. And the traditional payments was checks and cash, right? Back in the day when we first started Curecubby, you know, what we saw was that our customers, our very first customers, what they told us is, Ross, I was spending anywhere between 20 to 40 hours every month, right, to collect money from my parents. And this was at the preschools, because these were our first customers. And I would stand in line at the bank and wait for them to get the money to be deposited. This was very time consuming, and many of these preschool directors, they were also owner operators. So they had to not only operate the preschool and work with the teachers and the kids, but they also had to go out and be the CFO or be the accountant and actually make sure the money was collected and they would physically deposit it in the bank. So we were dealing with paper checks. You know, collection of payments was on premise, right? Who has time for that, right? The parents would have to physically write a check and then drop off their kid. And then if they have time, try to physically go into the office and drop a check off in the mail slot. This is not going to work. And this does happen right now, right? But we're actually glad it happens, because it presents a great opportunity for Curecubby to show them there's a better way, right? Who has time to walk into the school to drop off a paper check? I've got to go drop off my second kid, or I've got to go into work early, or I have to go take care of my mom, right? I mean, it's just not something that is conducive to people's lives. And then it would take days or weeks for customers to get paid and to actually get the money deposited into the accounts. I remember one customer that we started with. She called up myself and my other co-founder, Stephen, and thanked us during Christmas. And I said, "Why are you thanking us?" She goes, "Ross, this is the first time that I was actually able to pay out bonuses." And I go, "Why? Why was this the first time?" She goes, "Before, I used to always have to wait for parents to pay me, or I would have to remind them. With you guys send out the automated text, you guys send out the automated emails, and then the money, you guys just funnel it directly into my bank account." I know it's not rocket science, but in a way it is, because we're helping make people's lives better. We're helping improve their financial cash flow.
I think it's an incredible story to tell. And Ross, thank you so much for the great overview of fintech and Kirkhubby. And we're definitely going to dig into this in a minute with all the questions. I want to jump to the other panelists to do their self-introductions, but that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Ross.
You got it. Thanks, Natalie.
Our next panelist is Dr. Kramer Winingham. He is the program director with NMSU Arrowhead Center. And he's going to be overseeing a new fintech program. So I would like to pass that over to you, Kramer. Allow you to share your screen in a minute.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you see the screen all right?
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. So yeah, I really appreciate being on this panel. It comes at a perfect time. We're just launching a new program called the Nucendas Fintech Lab. So I'll talk about that. And I also want to give you guys an overview on Arrowhead Center and a lot of the resources we can provide. My name is Kramer Winingham. I'm a program director at Arrowhead Center. Arrowhead Center is based at NMSU, and we're all about creating economic opportunity and supporting economic development through entrepreneurship and innovation. And so we do that through a lot of ways. We work directly with businesses. We help with intellectual property commercialization. We've got some great education and training programs, and we have lots of public and private partnerships trying to create value through those. Some key areas for us: student success, social mobility, research and creativity, extension and outreach, so throughout New Mexico and the Borderplex region. And we always try to be as efficient as possible. Some important programs for the Borderplex: the Foster Innovation Exchange has some incredible resources, some really cool ones around product prototyping. Through Aggie Innovation Space, you can get assistance if you've got physical products you want to develop. Here's some examples here of things we can do. Design, prototyping, and then design for manufacturing is a great resource. We kind of develop our programs at Arrowhead by working with clients and seeing what they need and what would really help move them forward, and then we kind of create programs around that. So that's how these prototyping programs got developed. The Hunt Center for Entrepreneurship also supports a lot of our activities in El Paso and throughout the Borderplex. Our Studio G program, which I'll talk about in a second, and other accelerator programs. The K through 12 Innoventure program, trying to get young kids excited about entrepreneurship. And the Studio G program has been open at UTEP now for about 2 years. Studio G is our world-ranked student business incubator program. And so that's a great resource as well. So if any of you are students or recent alumni from UTEP, you'd be eligible for this program. The sprints are Arrowhead Accelerator programs. These are at different locations in different industries. There was a Borderplex sprint that just happened. Keep an eye out for these. These are really great programs. And then the follow-on services through Arrowhead are really great for any startups or businesses looking to expand. You can see here lots of different kind of niche programs. And basically, once you get into Arrowhead, then we help match you up with a lot of these different resources. Again, all these were created to kind of fill gaps in the ecosystem and help businesses develop. The Arrowhead Innovation Fund is a venture capital fund where we can invest in businesses with relationships with Arrowhead. So El Paso companies can be eligible for this. And we're in the process of raising a new fund with some higher investment amounts. These are some of the portfolio companies in this first round of Arrowhead Innovation Fund. And we also host competitions very regularly. So keep an eye out for those. Again, these are all great opportunities to help move your business forward. There's always great resources and prizes, follow-on resources and connections. And we also do research. This is another thing I focus on: impact analysis, feasibility studies, customized research solutions, and things like that. We have some physical space at the Arrowhead Park. Between Highway 10 and 25, there's kind of a 200-acre plot of land shaped kind of like an arrowhead, and there's opportunities for development in there. And this is the one I really wanted to highlight for this panel, the Nucendas Fintech Lab. This is a brand new program. It's really kind of being developed at this point. The award just was announced in August. The program is supported by $1.5 million of a $3 million gift from Nucendas Credit Union. And this was really cool how this worked out. The CEO of Nucendas Credit Union, Joe Christian, is an NMSU alum, and he is super excited about fintech. Nucendas is mostly based in Albuquerque. They've been expanding down into Las Cruces, but they try to adopt lots of new fintech technologies and things like that. And so that's where we thought there was a good partnership. This is an area we've been interested in. And in talking with Nucendas, we were able to put together this concept for a fintech lab. And so basically what this will have is some lab space with some hardware resources. We're hoping to offer some really value-added virtual resources so we can serve a broader audience. We'll have a speaker series. The first event is next week, actually, November 4th. We've got 3 great speakers for that. We'll have sponsorship programs to support fintech entrepreneurs, an annual hackathon to encourage new development in new fintech technology, and an annual pitch competition. And so where we're at now with this is gauging interest in El Paso. We really, like I said, at Arrowhead, we always try to figure out what can kind of move the needle and what do entrepreneurs need. And so we're always asking entrepreneurs, what can we do to add value? And so that's the stage we're at, is figuring out what would be the most value-added resources we can provide. So if any of you are fintech entrepreneurs or have a fintech startup, I'd encourage you to reach out at this email here, fintech@nmsu.edu. Just send an email, say you're interested, and we'll start working with you, because it's a chance to kind of have some input on, what should we be offering in terms of resources, and making the program as effective as possible. And so I'd echo a lot of the stuff Ross said on definitions of fintech. Those are a lot of the things that make us excited about this opportunity. The ability to make things more convenient, faster through payments, and better information and things like that. So we're really excited about this opportunity, and look forward to hearing from you, all you fintech entrepreneurs out there.
Thank you so much, Kramer. This is a really exciting new program. Obviously, you've heard the president of Nucendas sees a lot of potential in fintech, and that is why they've put this in, this gift to NMSU to build this new program. So thank you so much for being here, Kramer, and thanks for that self-intro. So our final panelist is Matthew Curl. Matt is the head of revenue operations with a company called Checkr, and he is also an advisor for Curecubby. So Matt, it's great to have you here to hear a lot more about the nitty-gritty behind what it takes to really be successful in this industry. So glad to have you, and I'll pass it over to you for your self-intro.
Sure, thanks, Natalie. Nice to chat, everybody. I did not make nice slides, so y'all just have to hear me talk. Like Natalie mentioned, I'm the VP of Revenue Operations at Checkr. It's a unicorn tech company, not in the fintech space, I've done some investments in fintech, also advised Curecubby. Prior to that was at a company called 5 Stars. In the last couple of years there, morphed into somewhat of a fintech company, which is pretty exciting. Really excited to chat, open to talk about anything. I've been in the Bay Area for a long time, seen a lot of trends, seen a lot of interesting things emerge, but predominantly in my career, I focused on go-to-market, which is how do we market and sell products in the tech ecosystems. So that's where I've spent my whole career. Obviously, get to work very closely with product teams and engineering teams all the time. So happy to chat about that as well. I think the last thing I'll just touch briefly on in fintech and why it's super interesting. I think a lot of the points that Kramer and Ross brought up are absolutely correct. I think the way I think about it is, what's a problem that you don't think is a problem, but probably should not be the way it is, and how do you go disrupt that? So at least in fintech today, I think some of the common trends I see, some of the companies that are starting to emerge are really challenging. For example, payroll. So I think everybody here, payroll is probably very relevant. You've probably been paid at some point in your career or have received a paycheck, but I think there's a lot of even interesting questions in that. And that's usually what leads to disruptive technology. So examples of good questions today, if we want to pick payroll as an example of where a fintech company could go play. Why do you get paid every 2 weeks? Why is it not every day? Why do you only get paid in US dollars? Why can't you choose to be paid in whatever currency you would prefer? Why does the payment have to go always to your bank account? Why can you not change your elections on demand? Why are all of these things the way they are? And I think when you think about companies like ADP or larger incumbent players, I know ADP has a large office in the region. I think these are really interesting questions that people start to ask. And I think that's the opportunity that gets presented with tech broadly, and then fintech in particular. So lots of unique challenges I think that face fintech companies, especially early on, and as they start to emerge. We'd be happy to chat about that as well, but excited to be here and looking forward to y'all's questions.
Matt, thank you so much. It's really interesting to hear your perspective because you're looking at that big picture and all the opportunities that exist. And I think that we need to understand, I mean, when you're trying to ground yourself in where the opportunities, you have to understand the trends and you have to understand that big picture. So, on that mark, and if the other panelists want to go ahead and unmute yourselves and come back in so we can have a discussion. But just to maybe pick up on what you just said, Matt, to give us maybe that big picture overview of this industry and help us understand it. I mean, what is the long range growth potential of the industry that you see? Like, why is it that you are an investor in this particular industry, and where are the areas of growth, like you mentioned, payroll being one of them, but what are those other opportunities for growth?
Yeah, I mean, in fintech, so a couple of the more interesting ones, I mean, you're talking companies whose valuations went from, maybe 5-10 million to about $1 billion in 18 months of runway. And so there's a big event going on right now called Money 2020. If y'all haven't seen it, it's happening. I think today's the last day of it, but you can go watch some of those panels. I think broadly what you're starting to see is the spin out of a couple really interesting trends. One is like cardless banks and neobanks, which is basically how do you disrupt basically the legacy structure that exists within financial systems. You no longer have to do those things. There's even companies like one called Mythia that's super interesting. I didn't invest in that one, but that's an example of a cardless bank. It's a debit card that is really targeting 18 to 24-year-olds that traditionally maybe unbanked or less banked in the US. And it's basically building like a questing system on top of that. So it's almost using like gamification with those types of things, and then offering stuff like loot boxes and games like Call of Duty with unique skins if you and your friends can hit certain like milestones. These are all like really unique, weird concepts. And I think if you just stop and step back and you think about what do we think about when we think about traditional banking, that is not something you would ever think about. So these are the types of companies that are doing really well. Two companies in particular that I've invested in, one's Spenmo, another one's Cardless. Both have done really well. You can go look at those. Curecubby's obviously crushed it as well. It's really the infrastructure that used to exist to start an entity was very big. And what you're finding is that companies have basically figured out, oh, we can take off this one part of infrastructure. So like PayFac in a box, you can become a payments facilitator I'll take another example industry because this exists, I think, in El Paso in the region. There are point of sale providers. In the traditional world of the point of sale provider, they would have to go hook up with Fifth Third's banks and other people and figure out how do we offer payments as a service. You don't have to do that anymore. You can literally purchase software off the box and basically become your own payment facilitator and cut out a bunch of these middle layers. And so what you're basically seeing is technology now exists where there used to be huge institutions that you were giving money away to. And that all represents a lot of opportunity for financial arbitrage. And where there's financial arbitrage is ability to make money, do interesting things, and disrupt spaces. And so those are a couple trends I think that I see emerging, but definitely go look at some of those keynotes on Money 2020, and I think you'll get a really good picture of what's possible.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And you talked about that 1 million to 18 billion, and or how many billion in 18 months?
Like 13 million to $1 billion valuation.
13 million to $1 billion.
Which is insane.
I mean, that's incredible in 18 months. So the opportunity here is massive. And you were talking a lot about disrupting the legacy, the banking institution. I know that there's probably some bankers with us today. So
get with the program bankers. Get with the program.
I want to pose a different question for you, Matt. And this is actually, it's a potential business opportunity for a few people, but do you see it? Do you see the value in maybe credit unions or community banks or even larger banks partnering with entrepreneurs to solve problems that they're having and create a new product? And do you see that ever happening? Is that one way to do it? Is that a viable way to maybe solve a problem? And create win-win solutions?
For sure. I think absolutely. I mean, I think the way I think about more traditional banking, if y'all would pay attention to technology trends, I'll just be very blunt, and you are better positioned than anybody to innovate and do really interesting and unique things in this space, but you have to move away from the traditional model. The traditional model will never die. I think there's always going to be a place for that model. I more think about it as you have subject expertise and you have entrenchment in the market where you have cash flow and you have funds and you're able to go innovate and do this stuff. So I more think of it as a challenge of how do you push your business to keep apprised of the technology trends and not let them run past you? How do you become a part of the story and how do you stay focused on that? And do you even have an innovative group? Like, are you doing anything innovative or are you just running a traditional playbook? So I more think of it as, how do you take a posture of putting mind share and trying to do interesting things and staying abreast of the trends and pushing, but arguably they're better positioned than anybody to create these companies. I find it very fascinating that you don't see Wells Fargo or these other traditional large players as the ones that are championing this stuff. But I think that's always like an innovator's dilemma type of thing. Not sure Ross or Kramer what they've seen as well, but I think they're arguably the best position. They just have to go do it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Ross?
I'm gonna just explain like what we're seeing. I think Matt's absolutely right, by the way, first of all, because what we're seeing is we're seeing smaller banks really take charge, and what they're doing is they're partnering with other fintech companies, like what I'd call like a payment processor, and they're creating all these new digital products, loan products, credit card products, debit products, expense card products, and they're really innovating, and they're able to market these to all kinds of companies. Like Wells Fargo, it's true that why isn't Bank of America and Wells Fargo doing what many of these other smaller banks are doing and partnering with a fintech company to create loan products or just totally new products for consumers or for other companies like ourselves, because we consume this, right?
Right. And that it does sound like the perfect pairing. You've got like Matt's describing, the institutional knowledge and the understanding of the regulations and everything, and then you bring that with the people who understand how to make a good product and solve problems through technology. So there's that potential there. And along those lines of regulations and things, I assume that with a legacy industry like banking, for example, you've got, decades, hundreds of years of regulations and rules and everything. As an entrepreneur in the space, I mean, are there some challenges or barriers, or maybe even opportunities and loopholes that you all have discovered as a fintech company in banking? Because it's going to be I would imagine one of the biggest challenges to enter this space is maybe regulations. Would you agree with that, Ross?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily loopholes, but there are definitely a lot of regulations out there. In fact, there are regulations that have come out very recently, probably in the last few decades, like KYC, know your customer. And I think the important or one of the key things that we've done there is, rather than try to reinvent a lot of these mitigation processes and compliance processes, we choose to partner with other companies who've already done it, right? So we don't have to repeat it over and over. We partner with specialists. For example, we partner with Stripe, right? They know what they're doing, and they've done basically we're partnering with compliance experts, and that's really the key.
So going back to Kirkhubby, it's really interesting, Ross, because again, and we might have a greater challenge in our area because we don't live, this isn't the Silicon Valley. Most places are not Silicon Valley, nothing like it. And we don't have access to companies that are similar in the same space that you can partner with. But there might be other ways to partner or find these compliance experts, right? What do you recommend? I mean, this is solving some giant problem, but is there anything that you might recommend for someone who maybe lives in the area to actually overcome that, to find compliance experts?
Yeah, Matt, do you want? I think you were trying to go off mute, or do you mind if I take a stab at this?
No, I mean, I would just go to Google and type in KYC vendors, and you'll find like Verif or Middesk or a bunch of others. If you have rudimentary understanding of API calls, I think what Ross is saying is you don't need to go set up a compliance team. You just need to purchase off-the-shelf software, be willing to give them a small paycheck every time they run a KYC check for you, and you can stitch this stuff together.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. The main. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. What Matt was hitting on, and he says it so much more eloquently, is you all, as an entrepreneur, you have to make a decision. Are we going to build versus buy? Right. Building yourself can be expensive, or can you just buy it for a SaaS fee?
Right. Well, that's really good advice. I'm glad I asked the question, because I'm sure that entrepreneurs will find themselves in that point of, wow, this is really complicated. I don't know if I know all the regulations. How do I even enter this space with all of these challenges in mind? So that's really good to know.
But one more thing I'd add on that. I mean, where you see a lot of that complexity, I mean, those present business opportunities to provide solutions to those individual pieces. One resource we're hoping to offer is a platform called Constellation that Nucenda had invested in, and basically what it is, it's like an app store for credit unions. And so I've seen a couple of these, but the basic idea is they offer a development environment for fintechs to be able to put access bank data and be able to develop new software, and then it goes into a marketplace for the credit unions that are on the other side of their platform. And so I think things like that, like Ross and Matt were saying, help bridge the gap and allow you to get started without having to do everything from scratch, and build those relationships and get to market quicker, and build those relationships with credit unions or whichever bank you're looking to.
That's really good advice, Kramer. Tell us about the new FinTech Lab. Have you thought about what kind of programming you're going to have? I mean, this is, if I'm a FinTech entrepreneur, I'm going to go to the FinTech Lab at Arrowhead Center, and I'm going to need advice exactly like this. I mean, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the programming ideas that you have in mind this far?
Yeah, so one of the first things was kind of conversations like this about talking about opportunities in FinTech. So I think kind of opening people's eyes to the huge range of opportunities in FinTech is something that we're definitely going to try to do with the speaker series and other events. Show students and local entrepreneurs the opportunities in FinTech. So I think that's kind of the first step: awareness and sharing the opportunity. and then create as many value-added resources as we can. Hopefully, we can deliver these virtually. We're looking at software development environments that may make it easier for entrepreneurs to develop things. Platforms like Constellation that offer pathways to market for fintech. Specific advisors around fintech, and that's a broad area. So we're looking to build out that advisor network. Arrowhead already has a very deep advisor network, so that's typically the way we help entrepreneurs is, if you have an accounting question or a legal question, you can just schedule with an advisor and get answers that way. So that's kind of where we're starting. If there's specific hardware that we can put together. I mean, we do get a lot of requests of people that want to develop, for iOS, but they don't have a Mac. So I mean, we're going to make that available. Being able to offer hosting credits with AWS is something we hope to do as well. So really looking for all these avenues that we can offer value.
Mm-hmm. And does someone need to be enrolled at NMSU to participate? And if not, who can participate?
We're hoping to make this open to everybody in New Mexico and El Paso is the goal there.
Great.
Really, it's important if anybody is interested in joining from El Paso, send an email to that fintech@nmsu.edu because that's going to help us get that particular eligibility set up.
Okay, good to know. We've been talking a lot about product development, and I think maybe just to ground us, it would help to hear from Ross about just maybe different products that you all have done. I know you mentioned the story of how you started Kirkhubby, right? The trying to streamline the accounting processes for schools. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the other things that Kirkhubby is looking at or has done as part of your company.
Sure. No, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. So as I said before, when we started many years ago, our first customers were preschools. But that's changed over time. And again, it's about opportunities that present themselves. Our customers are our biggest source of new ideas. You listen to your customer, they will give you new ideas of what problems, as Matt said earlier, are they trying to solve. And so now we're not just helping preschools, we're helping K-8, we're helping universities, we're helping city governments, we're helping them obviously manage their finances, but we're also helping them manage their internal workflow. We're helping them with compliance matters, their own compliance matters. And this came out of COVID, right? COVID, look, we all know COVID was a very horrible and devastating event or a set of events, and some of us have been touched very negatively by it. I feel lucky that personally for me that I've mostly been left unscathed. I mean, and I hope that that's the situation for most of the folks here, that we're all okay despite COVID. But with COVID comes problems that you're trying to solve. City governments, schools, after-school programs, they're all looking to manage their compliance regulations. Things like making sure that for every child who comes to school or for every employee who comes to work, have they filled out their COVID questionnaire? And that's some of the other products that we've developed outside of just finance, and there are many more. But really we've gone from just fintech for preschools to managing workflows, managing compliance, and really going up and down K-8 adult programs, after school programs, and city government.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know you're probably working on some of them. Some of them are launched. Are these, if someone wants to hear a little bit more or see a little bit more of what you've done, are these products currently on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
As Matt said, you just Google Curecubby, or you can go to www.curecubby.com.
Yeah, because I know that you all you're doing a lot, and it's amazing. And you're talking about how you started with one and it was a great idea. You built it out, it's successful, but it didn't stop there, right? You're continuously finding problems and working through them with your customers and building new products. So as an entrepreneur, it's almost like it sounds like you can get your foot in the door with one product, and then once you start to build it out, you start and find new customers, and it starts to just grow almost naturally, right?
That's right. But I think you should work on our sales team. That sounds like a great go-to market.
I'll take a commission for sure. You know, the hard part, I mean, the critical fundamental part of a company getting off the ground is funding, right? I'm so glad to hear that you know, not only does NMSU have the Arrowhead Innovation Fund, but there's it's growing, and it sounds like there's a new fund. In terms of your other types of investors, you know, there's probably different ways, different things that an entrepreneur needs to do to make them attractive to those investors, and those investors might be proactively looking at certain criteria when they're looking for investments that could really pay off. So obviously, Matt, this question is for you. I mean, what are some of the things that an entrepreneur should be doing to prepare themselves to successfully gain funding? I mean, this is a another giant question, but a fundamental one.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think, you know, I've spent more time in El Paso recently trying to understand this. I think there's a misperception that you have to be in the Bay Area or something to get funding. It's just not true. You have to have a good idea, and you have to have like a team that people believe is credible and can execute against it. Those are like two foundational things. So, I mean, generally, like when you think about like the people that it's very easy to get money. You've built a business before, you've executed well, you've been in that space, you were a director of product, you were a director of engineering, or a VP product, VP engineering, you worked at PayPal. If you have an idea in that space and you go to an investor, they're going to give you a couple $1 million because they know you understand the space, the technology, and how to build the thing. If you're not in that cadre, which, you know, that is kind of where there is some of that halo effect of being in the Bay Area, you have to have an idea that just has traction and works, and there has to be a credible story that you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about. When you're pitching fintech investors, generally they understand the space. If you're pitching a SaaS investor, they generally understand the space. If you don't understand the space or the ecosystem and you're pitching ideas that aren't really coherent and make sense, it's going to be very difficult to get money. There's just not belief in what you're doing. So I think there's always, you know, traction is a very big thing. And then I think the other part is like, is the story credible? Like, I'll just tell you, like, you know, even being in El Paso recently, I was there a couple weeks ago. It makes me sad how many payday advance places are there. That is a huge space that needs to be disrupted. I was like downtown. I mean, I think I counted like 15 of them. And I was like, wow, you know, here's these banks probably in El Paso. Like, I'll just give an idea, an example, like where I think there is like opportunity, an example like Thesis. There's a bunch of banks in El Paso. They know if people are on payroll or not. They probably have integrations with ADP. They can see direct deposits coming. Why are people having to go to payday advance places and taking horrific short-term loans if you have another institution that knows they're credible, has a risk profile on them, has a lot more data? I think these are like examples of like arbitrage. So that would be an example thesis that you could say, okay, I believe that this is something that could be done. I believe there's predatory loaning. I think we could do better here. We're going to go attack this. So I use that as an example. Maybe someone wants to take it and go start a business. Good for you. I hope somebody disrupts some of that stuff. Those are the things you're going to want. And then the last part is kind of what Ross is talking about. It is not difficult to stitch together a V1 product anymore. And if you don't even have the technical ability to stitch that together and show a proof of concept that's workable, even with 1 or 2 customers, even at a small scale that's up and running and the systems are tight and you can pull it off, that's not good enough anymore. So ideas are cheap. You know, nobody really values them that much. And I think that in today's tech environment, if you've got a good programmer, someone that really knows how to program and how to like do things, you can get pretty far, and you can bootstrap something pretty far even without a lot of money. And I think those are the things that you're generally looking for as an investor is, you know, one of those two. Show me someone that's bootstrapped, it's got a V1 up in a space and a thesis that I like, or show me someone that's a proven horse in a race that has won races before, and I'll bet on that horse can run fast again. If you're neither of those, I think it's very difficult to pull in capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Yeah, good advice. I mean, there's the bootstrapping and pairing up those ideas with the programmer, gaining that traction, telling that credible story, all of these things. It's really excellent advice. we only have about 10 minutes. So I want to make sure that we give our audience a chance before I have more questions, but I want to give our audience a chance to ask questions. I believe we have a really diverse audience with us. So if you would like to ask a question, you can type it in the Q&A box right now. And as you do, I'm going to go ahead, since I see none at the moment, I will continue asking questions, but here forward, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box as they come. So one of the, I'm teeing up someone in the audience. You know who you are. I'm putting pressure on you for these types of questions. But one of the big, I think, challenges for even someone who's really talented, a talented programmer and everything is putting cybersecurity in your product, because you're dealing with the transferring of funds, right? And for someone to actually trust that it's going to be usable, and I'm not going to get cheated or stolen from, it's going to need to have really good cybersecurity. Are there maybe some maybe things that you've done, Ross, for example? How have you addressed cybersecurity? Or for Kramer, how would you maybe how would you advise an entrepreneur on how to integrate cybersecurity? How would you address, or how have you addressed this?
So I'll answer the question first. I'll answer it in two ways. First thing is, as an entrepreneur, you have to know how to delegate. And so our CTO knows everything about cybersecurity and how we're protecting ourselves. But the other thing I'm going to bring up is what I said before. You also need to partner with good partners where they're the specialists. So I know I've written the paychecks, or I approved the payments to many of our partners who help us with cybersecurity and help us with compliance and help us with many other things. Again, what Matt said is totally ringing true. To start up a company now, it is hard work, but there are plenty of resources out there, and they're out there. You don't have to be physically located in the Bay Area to execute a plan. What you have to do, and this is something that sorry, I'm going to digress a little bit. I'm going to stop myself right there before we get into a different topic. I want to talk about innovation, how we need to not think about innovation as technology, but in terms of changing your mindset about what's possible. And I'll stop there.
Okay. I actually think that I'll circle back with you on that. I think that's an important closing thought. But Kramer, did you want to talk about maybe how would you help an entrepreneur with this issue?
Yeah, I would agree with Ross. I mean, figuring out where you can delegate or where you can get the information you need to be able to do cybersecurity appropriately. It's one of the reasons we're interested in those platforms. Like, for example, Constellation allows you to basically leverage the security at the credit unions that you're going to be providing services to. So, if it's something that you're concerned about or don't think you can do, there may be ways to get to market, and be leaning on some other partners for that cybersecurity piece.
Okay, good to know. There are resources out there to address this very important issue. So Ross, I'm going to pass it back to you to give us our closing thought before we wrap up.
Okay, so thank you, Natalie, for allowing me to do this. I'm just going to share a conversation that I had recently with our CEO, Stephen Kwong, and he actually gave this presentation I think a couple of weeks ago, and it just resonated with me, which is any innovation, whether it's fintech or any type of innovation, it's not the technology that's the innovation. It's that someone actually changed their mindset to say, hey, what's possible? I don't, like Matt said, I want to disrupt this. What's happening now is not acceptable to me. I want to make a better way. And I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to say that I have a roadblock. Oh, I don't know anybody who does this. Well, let me go find somebody. I don't have money. Well, let me go find somebody. I don't have this. I don't have that. They're all excuses. They're not, nobody cares about excuses. What we need to do is change our mindset. If we can change our mindset and we can think it, we can imagine it, we can put it into action, we can manifest it, we can actually make it happen.
Good. Yeah. Great thought. Actually, it's like a good thought for our entire lives, right? But it's like, how do you be a successful entrepreneur? You have to have persistence. You have to work through all of those problems. So yeah, thank you for that thought, Ross. There is one question for Matt. Matt, you were talking about payroll options for employees. I was curious to know your thoughts and the others on the future of DeFi payments or opportunities for some of these payroll companies.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I think in 10, 15 years, everyone's going to think about payroll differently than they think about it today. I think you're already starting to see this in the gig economy. People are getting paid same day. There's just a lot of opportunity there. I mean, it's a very stodgy old system. So, you could just go think about that, right? Just go chew on all the ways that you could be paid differently, be paid with more interesting ways, like even how rigid so many of the processes are. It's really hard. It shouldn't have to be that way. So I
think you got muted right at the end, Matt, but I think we caught that last sentence.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, awesome thoughts. A lot of great information. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, Matt, Ross, Kramer. Thank you so much for being with us. This is a fascinating conversation, and I hope that everyone in the audience is excited now to start their own fintech company. I mean, you basically have the blueprint now. So it was really exciting to hear from all of you. So thank you so much for being with us. And to those of you in the audience, if you are interested in attending our next technology forum, we are having another technology forum in November, I believe it is November 15th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And we are doing something a little bit different. We're partnering with the National Security Innovation Council. The format of this will be very unique. We're going to have basically short pitches from different research institutions on some of the top research being conducted in the region. We're also going to hear from some federal agencies who are looking for researchers who can help them solve major problems through research and technology development. So it's a really great, I think, a great opportunity to come, observe, hear what's going on in the region, and even potentially identify some partners for your own institution. So look out for the advertising on that. We'll put that on LinkedIn and send out a mail out. But thank you so much for joining us today, and hope you all have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye, everyone.